In the vast expanse of the cosmos, the Zenith Alliance reigned supreme. This coalition of advanced alien civilizations had long since mastered the intricacies of interstellar travel, energy manipulation, and military might. Theirs was a galaxy-spanning empire built on technological superiority and a shared belief in the natural order of power dynamics. At the heart of the Zenith Alliance sat the High Council, a gathering of the mightiest rulers and strategists from across the stars. It was here, in the towering ceremonial chamber, that Supreme Commander Vos stood before the most influential beings in known space, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming in the soft blue light. The mood in the chamber was one of unease, a palpable tension that belied the confidence these leaders typically exuded. For Vos had summoned an emergency session, a rare occurrence that hinted at a grave concern, one that threatened to unravel the very foundations of the Zenith Alliance's dominance. Esteemed members of the High Council, Vos began, his secondary breathing vents hitching slightly, I stand before you with news that will undoubtedly disturb your afternoon meditation cycles. We have a human problem. A ripple of clicking mandibles and vibrating appendages swept through the chamber, betraying the council's discomfort. Chancellor Zara Brighthorn, her impressive golden horns adorned with the traditional marks of 200 successful negotiations, leaned forward. Commander Vos, surely you jest. These primitives have only just reached their own satellite without destroying it. What possible concern could they pose to the Zenith Alliance? Vos activated a holographic display, a small blue-green planet spinning lazily in the center of the chamber. That, Chancellor, is precisely the problem. We have gravely miscalculated their potential for disruption. Admiral Pel Sunweaver, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with barely contained amusement, waved 3 of her upper limbs dismissively. Commander, I've reviewed their military capabilities myself. They still use chemical propulsion, and their fastest ships would take years to reach even their closest neighboring star. This hardly seems worth convening an emergency session. Vos's exoskeleton darkened, a sign of growing frustration. With all due respect, Admiral, you're missing the point. Yes, their technology is laughably primitive by our standards. Their ships are slow, their weapons inefficient, and their understanding of quantum mechanics is still theoretical at best. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. But they possess something far more dangerous than advanced technology. They have creativity. The word hung in the air like a toxic gas cloud, and Council Member Trill Nightsong, her feathered crest rising in agitation, broke the silence. Creativity? You called an emergency session of the High Council to discuss an artistic tendency? Not artistic creativity, Council Member, Vos corrected, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Military creativity. Strategic creativity. The kind of creativity that turns simple tools into devastating weapons. The kind that transforms basic physics into warfare doctrines we've never imagined. Chancellor Brighthorn's bioluminescence dimmed slightly. Explain. Vos obliged. 3 solar cycles ago, we permitted a human diplomatic vessel to dock at Outpost Station 7, a gesture of goodwill, nothing more. The humans brought gifts, primitive artifacts from their world. One was a simple mechanical device they called a slingshot. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs and alarmed pheromone releases. Vos waited for the commotion to settle before continuing. Within 2 days, the station's maintenance crews had adapted the principle to create a mass accelerator that bypassed all our standard shield configurations. Admiral Sunweaver's bioluminescence had shifted from amused azure to concerned violet. Surely you're overreacting, Commander. They're still just primitives. Yes, Vos agreed, his exoskeleton now a deep shade of warning red. Primitives who turned their planet's deadliest predator into a household companion. Primitives who learned to harness nuclear fusion by studying the stars. Primitives who view every tool as a potential weapon and every weapon as a tool. And now, thanks to our standard first contact protocols, they have access to our trading networks. The silence that followed was deafening. Vos seized the opportunity to drive his point home. Let me tell you exactly how we ended up in this situation. As the Supreme Commander's tale unfolded, the High Council members found themselves drawn into a narrative that would forever alter their understanding of the galaxy's power dynamics. For what began as a seemingly innocuous trade negotiation would soon reveal the true extent of human creativity, a force that would prove far more disruptive than any technological superiority the Zenith Alliance could claim. As CRA Bose's tale unfolded, the High Council members found themselves drawn deeper into a narrative that would forever alter their understanding of the galaxy's power dynamics. The seeds of this unsettling revelation had been planted during what should have been a routine trade negotiation, an encounter that began with the arrival of a human diplomatic delegation. It started with what should have been a standard trade negotiation, CRA Bose explained, bringing up a holographic image of a human female standing confidently in the Grand Exchange Hall of Outpost Station 7. Her dark skin contrasted sharply with the formal white diplomatic uniform she wore, and her short crop of silver hair seemed to catch every light in the room. Ambassador Lisa Blackwood, CRA Bose introduced, his voice carrying a mix of respect and weariness. She arrived with what they called a sample case of human goods, standard procedure, or so we thought. Trade Minister Rix Copperwing buzzed his wings in agitation. I was there, Commander. I saw nothing unusual about the proceedings. That's because you were watching for the usual signs of deception, Minister, CRA Bose countered. Tell them what happened when Ambassador Blackwood opened her case. Copperwing's wings drooped slightly. She brought out something called a Swiss Army knife, a primitive multi-tool, barely worth notice. And what happened next? CRA Bose prompted. The Merchant Guild representatives began laughing, Copperwing recalled. They called it a toy, said any species past its industrial age would have separate specialized tools for each function. CRA Bose nodded. And what did Ambassador Blackwood do? She just smiled, Copperwing answered, his antenna twitching. The hologram shifted, now showing the next scene, Ambassador Blackwood standing before the Merchant Guild Council, that same serene smile still on her face. Honorable members of the guild, her recorded voice rang clear through the chamber. You're absolutely right. Specialized tools are more efficient, more precise, better in every measurable way. She paused, her expression never wavering. But tell me, what happens when your specialized tool breaks? What happens when you're light years from a replacement? What happens when you need to improvise? Chancellor Brighthorn leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. She was baiting them. Oh, it gets better, CRA Bose said, nodding to the hologram. The scene shifted again, showing Ambassador Blackwood approaching one of the guild's prized autonomous maintenance units, a sleek machine that represented the pinnacle of specialized repair technology. With quick, practiced movements, she used her primitive multi-tool to open its access panel and reconfigure several components. The guild representatives were outraged, Copperwing continued. They demanded she step away from the unit, but then... His voice trailed off, and a look of bewilderment crossed his features. She improved its efficiency by 37%, CRA Bose finished, using nothing but a primitive fold-out tool and what she called common-sense engineering. Admiral Sunweaver's bioluminescence pulsed rapidly. One lucky modification hardly constitutes a crisis, Commander. The modification wasn't the crisis, Admiral, CRA Bose corrected. The crisis came when Ambassador Blackwood declined the exclusive trade contract the Merchant Guild offered her on the spot. Instead, she offered to teach the guild's engineers her methodology for free. The chamber erupted in sounds of disbelief. In galactic society, knowledge was currency, the very idea of giving it away freely was almost obscene. That's not the worst part, CRA Bose said, his exoskeleton darkening further. When asked why she would share such valuable insights without compensation, Ambassador Blackwood said something that should terrify us all. He paused, allowing the tension to build. She said, because that's how humans learn. We share ideas, we build on them together, and we figure out new ways to solve old problems. Besides, I'm sure you'll come up with improvements we haven't even thought of yet. Council member Trill Nightsong's feathers rippled. She weaponized generosity. No, CRA Bose corrected. She weaponized collaboration. The hologram shifted once more, showing a final image, dozens of species working together in a maintenance bay, sharing tools and ideas with an enthusiasm that bordered on chaos. At the center stood Ambassador Blackwood, that same serene smile on her face as she watched the innovation she had unleashed spread like wildfire through the galaxy. But the real revelation, Cra Vos said, came from Commander Nixtrell's weapons analysis. A tall, sleek figure stepped forward from the shadows, her chrome-plated cybernetic enhancements catching the light as she moved. "Thank you, Supreme Commander," Commander Nixtrell began, her organic eye focused while her artificial one processed data streams. "My findings are disturbing." The High Council members leaned in, bracing themselves for the next twist in this unfolding saga. As Commander Nixtrell stepped forward, the High Council members leaned in, bracing themselves for the next twist in this unfolding saga. Nixtrell's chrome-plated cybernetic enhancements caught the light as she moved, her organic eye focused while the artificial one processed data streams. "Thank you, Supreme Commander," Nixtrell began, her voice calm and measured. "My findings are disturbing." She gestured to the holographic display, which shifted to show various weapons throughout their history. At first glance, the progression of their weapons technology appears logical: spears, bows, gunpowder weapons, and so on, Nixtrell explained. But there's something unique about their approach. The hologram zoomed in on a simple metal tube. "This is what the humans call a zip gun, a crude projectile weapon that can be manufactured from plumbing parts." Admiral Sunweaver's bioluminescence flickered with confusion. "Wrong? How?" "Because, Admiral," Nixtrell replied, her organic eye narrowing, "the humans didn't abandon this technology when they developed better weapons. They kept it, refined it, and taught their warriors to make weapons from virtually nothing." The hologram shifted, showing human soldiers in various scenarios, creating weapons from everyday items. "They call it field expedience," Nixtrell continued. "They train their warriors to view everything as a potential weapon, everything as a tool." Chancellor Brighthorn's horns dipped slightly. "Surely our advanced technology would make such primitive methods obsolete." "That's what we assumed," Nixtrell responded, her cybernetic eye pulsing red. "Then we observed their response to our standard shield technology." The hologram changed again, depicting a scene of chaos. Within days of examining a basic personal shield generator, they had developed what they call an electromagnetic pulse grenade using parts from entertainment devices. A weapon so simple, yet it completely bypasses our most advanced defensive systems. The chamber grew deadly silent as the implications sank in. Nixtrell continued, her voice steady but concerned. "They don't think in terms of technological progression. They think in terms of problems and solutions. When faced with our energy shields, they didn't try to develop better energy weapons. They simply asked themselves, what would shut down the power, and then built it from spare parts." Admiral Sunweaver's bioluminescence had shifted to a worried crimson. "But the most dangerous aspect?" Nixtrell nodded. "Is their willingness to share this knowledge." The hologram shifted to a final image, showing detailed instructions on a human information network. "They call them do-it-yourself guides," Nixtrell explained. "They don't hoard their innovations, they don't restrict access. They post detailed instructions on their information networks, freely sharing their discoveries with anyone who cares to learn." Cra Vos stepped forward, his exoskeleton rippling with the gravity of the situation. "Consider the implications. Every maintenance worker who learned from Ambassador Blackwood's demonstration now looks at our technology differently. They're not just repairing machines anymore, they're reimagining them, repurposing them." He gestured to the hologram. "Last week, a cargo handler on the Outer Rim turned a standard gravity manipulator into what the humans call a railgun. He said he got the idea from studying ancient human slingshot designs. The weapon wasn't very accurate, but it could launch cargo containers at near relativistic speeds. He posted the designs on the maintenance network within hours, and others have already begun improving it." Council member Trill Nightsong's feathers stood on end. "You're saying they've triggered some kind of technological revolution?" "No," Nixtrell corrected, both eyes now glowing red. We're saying they've triggered an innovation cascade. It's not about the technology, it's about the way of thinking they've taught our people. To stop looking for perfect solutions and start finding ways to make imperfect solutions work. She gestured to the hologram, which showed a final image of a simple human wrench being used to modify a complex alien device. They have a saying, if it looks stupid, but it works, it isn't stupid. Nixtrell paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in. That philosophy, combined with access to our technology, has changed everything. The balance of power isn't shifting because of human weapons, it's shifting because humans have taught the galaxy how to improvise. Trade Minister Copperwing's wings vibrated with nervous energy. The political ramifications have been catastrophic. Smaller species that we once considered harmless are now demanding equal representation in the Galactic Senate. The hologram shifted, displaying a recent Senate session. A small, unassuming representative from the Tessari system, barely 4 feet tall, with large compound eyes, stood at the central podium. Behind him floated what appeared to be a modified cleaning drone, now bristling with improvised weapons. The Tessari were chemical farmers, Admiral Sunweaver said, her bioluminescence now a worried crimson. They supplied fertilizers to half the sector. How did they develop military capabilities so quickly? They didn't develop them, Admiral Bose corrected. They adapted existing technology. Those cleaning drones? Perfectly legal commercial products. But after studying human combat tactics, the Tessari realized that with minimal modifications, the drone's cleaning sprayers could deliver their chemical compounds in rather more creative ways. Chancellor Brighthorn stomped her hoofed foot. This is outrageous. They're violating dozens of weapons development treaties. No, they're not, Chancellor, Nixtrell interjected. That's the brilliant part. None of these modifications are classified as weapons development. They're listed as industrial equipment upgrades in all official documentation. The humans taught them well. The hologram shifted to show various smaller species representatives meeting with human diplomatic teams, Ambassador Blackwood appearing in several images with that same knowing smile. The Corvin have turned their atmospheric processors into electromagnetic pulse generators, Vos continued. The Nexu Collective modified their mining lasers for precision cutting at military-grade distances. Even the peaceful Xena have transformed their solar collection arrays into what they call strategic defense platforms. Nixtrell's voice grew somber. But the worst part is that we can't stop the information from spreading. The humans introduced something called open-source development. Every innovation, every modification, every clever repurposing of technology gets shared across the maintenance networks. They're calling it the Galactic Makers Community. The hologram shifted once more, showing a massive space station traditionally used for cargo transfer, but now its docking arms had been modified, turning the entire structure into what looked like a gigantic version of that first simple human slingshot. Last week, the Maritile Guild tried to shut down a Tessari trading post, Copperwing reported, his wings vibrating with anxiety. The Tessari responded by using their modified station to launch cargo containers filled with their strongest fertilizer compounds, non-lethal, but highly effective at discouraging aggressive action. Vose's exoskeleton darkened. The humans call it asymmetric warfare, but this is beyond warfare. This is a complete restructuring of galactic power dynamics. The smaller species don't need massive fleets or advanced weapons. They just need creativity and access to commercial technology. Chancellor Brighthorn's horns had lost almost all their luster. How many species have adopted these human methods? A better question would be, how many haven't? Nixtrell replied. The hologram showed the latest Galactic Senate session, where once the chamber had been dominated by the largest and most technologically advanced species, now representatives from dozens of smaller worlds demanded attention, each carrying some form of modified commercial technology not as a threat, but as a reminder. Vose's voice was laced with a hint of resignation. The balance of power hasn't just shifted, Chancellor. It's been completely rewritten. And we did it to ourselves, when we assumed that primitive technology meant primitive thinking. The hologram faded, leaving the High Council in thoughtful silence. The humans hadn't needed to conquer the galaxy, they had simply shown others how to use what they already had. The High Council members sat in thoughtful silence as the gravity of Cra Vose's words sank in. The balance of power in the galaxy had been completely rewritten, all because of a simple encounter with a human diplomatic delegation. The breaking point came at the Battle of Nexus 7, Admiral Sunweaver said, her bioluminescence now pulsing with remembered shock. The hologram shifted, displaying a massive space battle, but unlike anything the Council had seen before. We deployed our 7th Fleet to suppress what we thought was a minor uprising, the Admiral continued, her lights dimming. 600 state-of-the-art warships against a collection of modified civilian vessels. It should have been over in minutes. Nixtrel's cybernetic eye pulsed ominously. We lost half the fleet in the first engagement. The hologram zoomed in, showing the chaos of the battle in detail. Cargo ships had turned their gravitational loading beams into weapons, yanking warships out of formation. Mining vessels used their industrial cutting lasers to slice through military-grade shields. Passenger liners had transformed their emergency escape pods into swarms of automated striker craft. They call it thinking outside the box, Nixtrel commented, her voice tinged with a hint of respect. Their military advisors taught the alliance of smaller species how to use civilian technology in ways we never imagined. But that wasn't the worst of it, as Admiral Sunweaver went on to explain. Show them the maintenance drones, she said, her voice tight. The hologram zoomed in on what appeared to be a cloud of standard repair units swarming around the military vessels. They reprogrammed them, the Admiral said, her bioluminescence flickering with remembered horror. Thousands of maintenance drones, all networked together. They didn't try to damage our ships, they made adjustments. Chancellor Brighthorn's horns dipped in alarm. Adjustments? Small changes, Sunweaver clarified, her voice strained. Hardly noticeable at first. But multiply those small changes across an entire fleet. The hologram shifted, showing the aftermath, the mighty 7th Fleet reduced to drifting helplessly in space, disabled not by weapons, but by carefully calculated mechanical sabotage. By the time we realized what was happening, half our weapons systems had been reconfigured to fire at minimum power, the Admiral continued. Our shields were operating on the wrong frequencies, and our targeting systems had been adjusted to deliberately miss by fractional degrees. The chamber was silent, the implications settling heavily upon the Council members. Finally, Cra Vose spoke up, his exoskeleton rippling with a mix of emotions. And then, Ambassador Blackwood made her move. The scene shifted to the Galactic Senate emergency session that followed. Lisa Blackwood stood at the podium, still wearing that serene smile. Honored representatives, her recorded voice echoed through the council chamber, what you've witnessed isn't an act of war. It's a demonstration of necessity. The hologram showed the faces of the Senate members as she continued. The smaller species of this galaxy have lived too long under the shadow of military might. Today, they've shown that civilian technology, properly applied, is more than a match for traditional warfare. Nixtrel's cybernetic eye gleamed with understanding. But this isn't about victory, she murmured. It's about recognition, about understanding that true power doesn't come from the strength of your weapons, but from the ingenuity of your people. On the hologram, Ambassador Blackwood turned her gaze to the major powers of the Zenith Alliance. We extend not terms of surrender, but an invitation. Join us in the Galactic Makers community. Share your knowledge freely, as we have shared ours. Let us transform this moment of conflict into an opportunity for unprecedented collaboration. Trade Minister Copperwing's wings buzzed in disbelief. She turned our own technology against us, and then offered to teach us how she did it. The hologram shifted, showing the results of that invitation, former enemies working together in shared manufacturing spaces, military engineers learning from civilian technicians, species that once dominated through force now competing through innovation. But the true masterstroke, Cra Vose revealed, came in the form of what the humans called open-source licensing. The hologram displayed Ambassador Blackwood presenting the new Galactic Technology Sharing Accord. All innovations developed through the Makers community must remain open and accessible to all members, Bose recited. No species may claim exclusive rights to collaborative developments. The only way to maintain technological advantages is to keep innovating, keep sharing, keep improving together. Nixtrell's voice held a note of reverence. She created a system where hoarding technology became disadvantageous, where collaboration and sharing became the most profitable path forward. The final hologram showed the aftermath of what historians would later call the Innovation Revolution: shipyards where civilian and military vessels were developed side by side, research stations where species freely shared their discoveries, and defense platforms built from modified commercial technology, protecting the worlds of former enemies and allies alike. The most remarkable thing, Admiral Sunweaver admitted, her bioluminescence now a thoughtful blue, was how quickly former adversaries adapted to the new paradigm. CRA Bose nodded. When the 7th Fleet was disabled, we expected demands for reparations. Instead, we received technical documentation explaining exactly how they defeated our defenses, along with suggestions for improvements. Nixtrell's organic eye gleamed with understanding. Because that's the human way. They don't seek to maintain advantage through secrecy. They maintain it through constant innovation and sharing. The final battle seemed dissolved, replaced by images of the new galactic Makers community in action, species that once would have destroyed each other now collaborating on projects, each bringing their unique perspectives and abilities to solve common problems. And that, CRA Bose concluded, is how a species we dismissed as primitive reshaped the power structure of the entire galaxy. Not through superior technology, not through military might, but through the simple act of teaching others to see possibilities where we saw only limitations. The High Council members sat in awed silence, their preconceptions of power and advancement forever shattered. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through force, but by unleashing a wave of creative chaos that irrevocably transformed the very foundations of galactic civilization. In the wake of CRA Bose's startling revelations, the High Council members sat in awed silence, their preconceptions of power and advancement forever shattered. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through force, but by unleashing a wave of creative chaos that irrevocably transformed the very foundations of galactic civilization. Supreme Commander Vos stood before the Council once more, his exoskeleton now shimmering with the calm blue hues of acceptance. Supreme Commander, he began, 6 cycles have passed since what we now call the Innovation Revolution. Our predictions of chaos were both right and wrong. The chamber looked different now, modified with what humans would call practical improvements. The once ceremonial floating platforms now doubled as emergency escape vehicles, a suggestion from the Tessari engineers. Yes, the old power structure has crumbled, Vos continued, but from its ruins, something remarkable has emerged. The hologram displayed the new galactic Senate chamber. Gone were the hierarchical tiers that once separated powerful species from weaker ones. Instead, representatives sat in collaborative clusters, organized by shared projects rather than military might. The humans have a saying, a rising tide lifts all boats, Vos explained. At first, we thought Ambassador Blackwood's sharing of knowledge would lead to our downfall. Instead, it has driven advancement at an unprecedented rate. Chancellor Brighthorn, her horns now decorated with symbols of both military and civilian achievements, nodded in agreement. The productivity reports from the joint development sectors are extraordinary, indeed. Indeed, Vos agreed. The Karani atmospheric modification techniques, combined with Tessari chemical engineering and our own energy manipulation technology, have terraformed 3 previously uninhabitable worlds. Worlds that now host research stations where dozens of species work together. Admiral Sunweaver, her bioluminescence a content green, pulled up new data streams. Military incidents have dropped by 70%, she reported. Not because we can't fight, but because warfare has become inefficient compared to collaboration. Vos's voice held a note of humility. And that, esteemed members of the Council, was the true gift the humans gave us. Not their technology, not their tactics, but their perspective. The understanding that power doesn't come from what you can prevent others from doing, it comes from what you can help others achieve. The final hologram showed Ambassador Lisa Blackwood at the opening of the first Galactic Makers Hub, a massive space station dedicated to collaborative innovation. Her silver hair had more gray now, but her smile remained unchanged. Beside her stood representatives from 100 species, including many from the former Zenith Alliance. "We thought we were the advanced species," Bose reflected. "We measured advancement by the complexity of our technology, the strength of our weapons, the impenetrability of our defenses. The humans showed us that true advancement lies in the ability to see beyond such limitations." Nick Strell's organic and cybernetic eyes gleamed with approval. "They turned the entire galaxy into one vast research and development lab. Every problem solved becomes a learning opportunity for all, every solution shared spawns a dozen new innovations." Bose faced the council one last time. "The humans have a term for what they gave us. They call it thinking like a hacker, not in the sense of causing damage, but in the sense of seeing beyond intended purposes, of finding creative solutions, of sharing knowledge freely. They turned our galaxy of separate, competing species into what they call an open-source community." He gestured to the hologram of the new Galactic Senate. "We no longer measure power by the size of our fleets or the strength of our weapons. We measure it by the number of problems we've helped solve, the innovations we've helped spawn, the collaborations we've helped foster." The chamber fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. Finally, Chancellor Brighthorn spoke, her voice tinged with curiosity. "And what of the humans themselves? Have they claimed their place as the new dominant species?" Bose's exoskeleton rippled with what might have been amusement. "No, they seem content to remain what they've always been: problem solvers, idea sharers. They call themselves facilitators of innovation, though privately, I've heard Ambassador Blackwood refer to humanity's role as the galaxy's tech support." The council chamber filled with various sounds of amusement. A fitting end, Bose thought, to what had begun as a crisis meeting. The humans hadn't conquered the galaxy, they had done something far more powerful. They had taught it how to conquer itself. As the council members discussed the implications of this new era of collaboration and innovation, Bose couldn't help but marvel at how the tide had turned. The Zenith Alliance, once the undisputed masters of the galaxy, now found themselves adapting to a paradigm shift driven by a species they had so easily dismissed as primitive. The humans had not sought dominance through technology or military might, but had instead unleashed a creative force that challenged the very foundations of galactic civilization. By teaching others to see the potential in every tool, every problem, and every collaboration, they had transformed the power dynamics of the known universe. Bose knew that the path forward would not be without its challenges, but he also sensed a growing excitement among the council members. The innovation revolution had ushered in a new era of unprecedented progress, where species once divided by rivalry now stood united in their pursuit of common goals. As the discussion continued, Bose couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism for the future. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through conquest, but by inspiring a creativity and collaborative spirit that would forever change the course of galactic history. As the High Council's discussion continued, Supreme Commander Cra Bose could sense a growing excitement among the members. The innovation revolution, as it had come to be known, had ushered in a new era of unprecedented progress, one where species once divided by rivalry and competition now stood united in their pursuit of common goals. "Supreme Commander," Chancellor Brighthorn began, her horns adorned with symbols of both military and civilian achievement, "what of the humans themselves? Have they claimed their place as the new dominant species in the galaxy?" Bose's exoskeleton rippled with what might have been amusement. "No, Chancellor," he replied, "they seem content to remain what they've always been: problem solvers, idea sharers. They call themselves facilitators of innovation, though privately, I've heard Ambassador Blackwood refer to humanity's role as the galaxy's tech support." The council chamber filled with various sounds of amusement. A fitting end, Bose mused, to what had begun as a crisis meeting. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through force or subterfuge, but had instead done something far more powerful: they had taught it how to conquer itself. "You know," Bose continued, "the most remarkable thing about this whole transformation is how quickly former adversaries adapted to the new paradigm. He gestured to the hologram, which displayed the bustling activity of the Galactic Makers community. When the 7th Fleet was disabled at the Battle of Nexus 7, Bose explained, we expected demands for reparations, accusations of treachery, perhaps even outright retaliation. Instead, we received technical documentation explanations of how they had defeated our defenses, along with suggestions for improvements. Admiral Sunweaver's bioluminescence shifted to a thoughtful blue. Because that's the human way, isn't it? She mused. They don't seek to maintain advantage through secrecy and hoarding. They maintain it through constant innovation and sharing. Nyx Trell, her organic and cybernetic eyes gleaming with understanding, nodded in agreement. Precisely. The humans weaponized collaboration, not conquest. They turned our galaxy of separate, competing species into an open-source community where the true power lies not in what you can prevent others from doing, but in what you can help them achieve. Bose gestured to the hologram, which now displayed images of the new Galactic Senate chamber. Look at it now, he said, a hint of pride in his voice. Gone are the hierarchical tiers that once separated the powerful from the weak. Instead, representatives sit in collaborative clusters, organized by shared projects and mutual interests rather than military might or technological supremacy. Chancellor Brighthorn's horns shimmered with a newfound respect. The productivity reports from the joint development sectors are indeed extraordinary. The Karani atmospheric modification techniques, combined with Tasari chemical engineering and our own energy manipulation technology, have terraformed 3 previously uninhabitable worlds. Bose nodded. And those worlds now host research stations where dozens of species work together, sharing their knowledge and expertise to push the boundaries of what was once thought possible. Admiral Sunweaver's bioluminescence pulsed with a cautious optimism. And the decline in military incidents? You said it's not because we've lost the ability to fight, but because warfare has become inefficient compared to collaboration. That's right, Admiral, Bose confirmed. The balance of power hasn't just shifted, it's been completely rewritten. We no longer measure strength by the size of our fleets or the destructive power of our weapons. Now, we judge ourselves by the number of problems we've helped solve, the innovations we've helped spawn, and the collaborations we've helped foster. Nyx Trell's eyes gleamed with a newfound respect for the humans. They turned our galaxy into one vast research and development lab. Every challenge becomes a learning opportunity, every solution a springboard for the next breakthrough. Bose gestured to the final hologram, which showed Ambassador Blackwood at the opening of the Galactic Makers Hub. The humans have a term for what they've given us, you know. They call it thinking like a hacker, not in the sense of causing damage, but in the sense of seeing beyond the intended purpose of things, finding creative solutions, and sharing that knowledge freely. Chancellor Brighthorn's horns had lost their former martial luster, now adorned with symbols of both military and civilian achievement. A fitting metaphor, she mused. They've taught us to view every tool, every system, every challenge as an opportunity to innovate, to collaborate, to push the boundaries of what was once thought possible. Bose nodded, a touch of wonder in his voice. Exactly. They didn't conquer us through superior technology or military might. They did something far more powerful. They taught us to conquer ourselves, to shed our old ways of thinking and embrace a new paradigm of shared progress and collective innovation. The High Council members sat in contemplative silence, their perspectives forever altered by the remarkable story CRA Bose had shared. The humans, once deemed primitive and insignificant, had forever changed the course of galactic civilization not through domination, but through the unleashing of a creative force that challenged the very foundations of power. So, what now? Admiral Sunweaver asked, her bioluminescence pulsing with a newfound sense of purpose. Where do we go from here? Bose allowed himself a small smile. Forward, Admiral. Forward, to a future where the true measure of our advancement is not what we can conquer, but what we can create together. As the Council members discussed the implications and opportunities presented by this new era of collaborative innovation, Bose couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism for the days to come. The humans had not sought to rule the galaxy, but to transform it, and in doing so, they had left an indelible mark on the very fabric of galactic society. In the end, the Zenith Alliance had not been conquered, but had been reborn, a testament to the power of creativity, the strength of collaboration, and the transformative potential of a species that dared to think beyond the limits of traditional thinking.